Hey there. It's me, Eden. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to my channel and visit my Patreon page for early access, link in the comment, thanks. At 15 minutes before the hour, Carol came to get me to tell me that we had to go. She would have been permitted to stay as long as she wanted, but I still had a curfew. Brad and Vinny went to warm up the cars while we said goodbye to the remaining guests. Jimmy Benneker hadn't been seen in hours, so we couldn't thank him for the party. Brad and Vinny were double parked in front when we went outside. Brad had to hurry around to lift me into the seat because my skirt was too tight to climb up by myself. Brad used up the rest of my curfew time in front of the house. This time I didn't bother fixing my makeup, I just used a tissue to clean off my lipstick and to wipe Brad's face as well. Sunday was Christmas Eve and we spent most of the day finishing the decorating and preparing for the Christmas dinner. Aunt Jessica arrived around noon to help out. During the afternoon, Carol and I alternated our use of the phone. I got to speak with Debbie for about an hour. She had only gotten in last night and had called just after I left for the party. I wished her a Merry Christmas and we agreed to go shopping on Tuesday. I knew that she and her parents would be spending Christmas afternoon with her grandmother at the nursing home. Things had been so hectic during the past month that Mom hadn't wrapped her presents, so after dinner Carol and I were made official wrappers. Working from my bedroom, while Carol worked from hers, we wrapped gifts for several hours. Mom would bring in gifts to each of us to wrap for other family members or friends. Mom even got Aunt Jessica working in her bedroom. By 10 o'clock we were all done and the presents were organized around the tree in the living room. With the work done, Mom made some brandy Alexanders to celebrate the holiday. One was enough to get me dizzy and I was falling asleep as I tried to watch television, so I kissed everyone goodnight and went to bed. Mom and Aunt Jessica were already in the kitchen when I went downstairs in the morning. I guess that the drink had made me sleep more soundly than usual, or I had been worn out from all of the pre-Christmas activity. Mom had batter made and poured some into the waffle maker when I came in. After kissing them both, wishing them a Merry Christmas, and getting a glass of OJ, I sat down to await the waffles. I could smell the turkey baking in the oven for our afternoon meal. Carol came in just as the waffles were ready, so we each took one as Mom made 2 more. After breakfast we all went into the living room and opened our presents. Carol and I received mostly clothes from Mom and Aunt Jessica, but we also got some makeup and jewelry. I had bought Carol a couple of games for her computer, and she had gotten me a couple of soft leather travel bags that were made in Mexico. The highlight of the day, for me at least, occurred after all the presents were unwrapped. Mom took a small, gift-wrapped box that she had kept separate from the other gifts and gave it to me. I thought that it was just one more of the minor little gifts like stocking stuffers that Mom liked to give and that she had forgotten, but when I opened it I found a picture of a car and a set of keys. It's parked around the corner on Pine Avenue, right in front of Mrs. Whitcomb's house, honey, Mom said. It's all licensed and ready to go. I just sat there with my mouth open. A car? For me? My own car? Mom nodded with each question. It's not new. It's a 5-year-old Subaru, but it's in excellent condition and it has low mileage. I felt tears starting to run down my cheeks as I cried with happiness that I had my own car now. I don't want you taking the bus anymore. You're too well known. And I don't want you standing at bus stops either. Oh, cries, Carol said excitedly. Your own car. That's so great. Let's go shopping tomorrow and try it out. I jumped up from my chair and ran over to Mom and gave her a big hug and a kiss. Thank you, Mommy. Thank you, thank you. I love it. I love you. You're welcome, honey. Merry Christmas. Just be careful until you get a feel for the car. Even though you have your driver's license, you haven't had a lot of experience. I will, Mom. Thanks. I sat back down next to Carol, who wanted to see the picture of the car. It looks great, cries. I think that I'm as excited as you are. Let's take a walk and look at it. We have a lot of work to do, girls, Mom said, to get ready for dinner. No joy riding today. Just bring the car back and put it in the driveway. Carol and I quickly cleaned up the wrapping paper mess and organized the gifts under the tree. Then we hurried upstairs and got dressed. I didn't even bathe. I would do that after we got back. 15 minutes later we were standing on Pine Avenue looking at the car. I circled it a couple of times, just looking at it, until Carol said, "Come on, cries, it's cold. Open the doors and let me get inside." I unlocked her side and went around to the driver's side as she got in. Mom must have driven it here because the seat was adjusted all the way forward. I found the control and moved it back a little before inserting the key in the ignition lock and turning it. The car roared to life immediately. As the car warmed up, we figured out where all of the controls were by looking in the owner's manual that Carol found in the glove box. As the heat finally started to warm the interior, we set the radio to a few stations that we liked. The former owner must have been into country western because that's what the buttons seemed to be set to. With the music playing, warmth flowing from the vents, and an understanding of the various controls, I turned on the left direction and pulled out onto the road. I know that Mom said that we shouldn't go joyriding, but I didn't think that a few turns around the neighborhood was really joyriding, so we spent about 10 minutes on the nearby streets before returning to the house and parking in the driveway behind Mom's car. Aunt Jessica had parked on the street in front of the house. Now that we had 2 cars at the house, we would have to figure out some system so that we weren't always blocking one another in the driveway. Mom and Aunt Jessica were in the kitchen when we got inside, and I went up to Mom, hugged her, and gave her another kiss on the cheek. Thanks, Mom, I love it. Carol and I drove around the block a couple of times and it handled great. I even tried it in 4-wheel drive. Enjoy it, honey. It's registered with the school already, so you can park in the student lot. I'm glad that you won't have to ride the school bus anymore. Now, why don't you and Carol go up and take your baths and get dressed? Then you can come back and help with lunch. Okay, Mom. As I relaxed in the tub, I kept thinking about my car and the freedom that I would have now that I didn't have to worry about bus schedules or troubling Mom for a ride. I couldn't wait for tomorrow to come so that I could go driving around. After I finished in the tub, I knocked lightly on Carol's door so that she could use the tub next, then I went into my bedroom. I thought briefly about last year's Santa's helper costumes. I wondered if Dad would be dressed as Santa again. I put on my panties, bra, and slip before going to my closet to select my clothes. Even though it was December, I got out the white leather skirt that Dad had given to me. I thought that it might make him happy to see that I was wearing it. I selected a red satin blouse and red pumps with 4-inch heels to go with it. Before getting dressed, I sat at my makeup table and did my face, then put on my garter belt and stockings. I could hear the tub draining as I finished getting dressed, so I went into Carol's room to talk to her as she dressed. Now that Christmas was almost behind us, we talked about New Year's Eve. Why don't you and Brad come with Vinny and me? We're going to a party at Adele's house. Brad hasn't said anything about New Year's Eve yet. He might have to attend a party at home like last year. I just don't know yet. We didn't talk much the other night. All he wanted to do was make out. I'll speak to Adele just in case to make sure that it's okay. As if anyone wouldn't want the famous Crystal Ramsay at their party. I giggled.
Yeah.
Right. Carol laughed. I'm serious, cries. Your coming to somebody's party is a status symbol. You become more famous every day that movie is playing in the theaters. And once it gets to videotape and television, you'll be even more famous. Nobody would turn you away at the door. I stopped giggling and thought about the situation. Carol was probably right. My fame would probably get me into any party, and I probably wouldn't have any difficulty getting a table at most restaurants for a while, even if they were packed. You can't have it both ways. With fame comes limitations on freedom, but it's offset with other benefits. Mom and Aunt Jessica were upstairs getting ready when Carol and I went down to the kitchen, but we knew what to do and we started working. Carol washed the sweet potatoes and made the cream sauce while I washed and cut up the mushrooms. By the time we were done, Mom and Aunt Jessica were back down and we worked together to finish the preparations. Dad arrived around 12:30 and Mom let him in after sniffing his breath. He came dressed in normal clothes this year, but he had a sack of presents with him that he put down next to the tree. Dinner wasn't quite ready, so Dad put the football game on while we finished up. As soon as the turkey had cooled enough to cut, Mom took it to the dining room table and called Dad. We put the rest of the food on serving dishes and carried them to the table while he sliced the bird, then we all sat down, said grace, and started enjoying the meal. Over dinner we all talked about what we had been doing since Thanksgiving. Dad had gone to see the new movie and he told me how proud he was to see his daughter in a major motion picture and what a great job I had done. He said that his friends at the office kept asking him to invite me to visit him there. After dinner we went into the living room to relax and open the presents. I received a skirt and jacket set and a sweater from Dad. My present to him was a new VCR and a tape of the play at the community theater that started my career. Brad called early in the afternoon and wished me a Merry Christmas. He asked if he could come over and I said yes. He arrived about a half hour later and I brought him into the living room to say hi to everyone. He had met them last year when he had come over and, after exchanging greetings, we sat down and Brad got into a conversation with Dad about the football season at Penn State while the rest of us talked about our gifts. I let Dad and Brad talk for about an hour before interrupting to invite Brad to have a sandwich. Once in the kitchen, Brad immediately grabbed me to kiss me. I let him have one kiss, then pushed him down into a chair while I made him a sandwich from the leftover turkey. As he ate, he told me what he had gotten for Christmas and I told him about my gifts, especially my car. That's great. Now you can come down to visit me at school. Well, I don't know about that. I'm still only 17 and I don't think that Mom would let me go. Start working on her. I'll arrange for a room if you can come. Don't make any arrangements just yet. I also have to worry about bad publicity, and going to visit with a boy for a weekend would be like pouring honey on myself while walking through a cage full of bears. Nobody would ever know, outside of us and your mother. Oh, Brad, don't be so naive. People recognize me wherever I go. Wear your disguise. That's not 100% effective. Especially with people trained at identifying people, such as celebrity photographers who are a lot better at it than store security guards. I'll think about it. There has to be a way. We'll see, I said, but I didn't expect that it would ever come about. I didn't relish having a sexual confrontation with Brad while in a distant city. Anyway, the real reason that I came was to bring your Christmas gift. Here. Merry Christmas. Brad had pulled a small wrapped gift from his sweater pocket. I took it and went to the cupboard and removed a gift that I had hidden there earlier. Merry Christmas, Brad. Thanks, baby doll. What is it? Open it and see, silly. He tore the wrapping from the present and found a jewelry presentation box that contained a waterproof sports watch, good to 250 foot down. Wow, I love it. Thanks, honey. You're welcome. Open yours. I stood next to him, slowly removing the wrapping paper, and found a small box from Romanoff's. I was praying that it wasn't a ring as I opened the box and discovered that it contained a pair of earrings that looked to be an exact match to the pendant that he had given me last year. Each earring contained a large stone that I assumed to be a diamond. Brad, they're absolutely beautiful. Thank you. You're welcome, doll. Brad put his arm around me as I leaned down towards him, intending to give him a kiss, but instead of just kissing me, he pulled me onto his lap and cradled me in his arms first. Just like last year, Dad chose that minute to come into the kitchen. What timing! Instead of looking upset, he looked embarrassed and merely said, "Oops, sorry kids," and backed out of the room as I pushed Brad away quickly. I was so surprised by Dad's reaction that Brad had an opportunity to pull me to him and start another long kiss before I recovered. Once I started, I figured that I might as well let him get it out of his system, so I wrapped my arms around his neck and kissed him back as thanks for the beautiful diamond earrings. I knew that we couldn't monopolize the kitchen for much longer, so after the long kiss I pushed Brad away, cleaned the bright red lipstick from his face using a paper napkin, and then tried to straighten myself out. After that, we returned to the living room where I showed everyone the beautiful earrings that I had, by now, put on. I was already wearing the pendant. Mom, Carol, and Aunt Jess made a small fuss over how pretty the earrings were while Dad just looked and said, "Nice. Very nice." I looked closely to see if I could figure out what he was feeling, and there didn't seem to be any of the indignation that I had seen last year when he had found us kissing. Brad stayed until almost 6 and then told me that he had to leave so as to be home as the relatives started to leave, so I walked him to the door. My folks are throwing another New Year's Eve party. Can you come? If you want me to. We're also invited to Adele's party. I'd love to go to Adele's party. Most of the guys are going to be there, but I can't. Okay, we'll go to your house then. You're the greatest. Thanks, honey. Oh, by the way, it's formal this year. Maybe you could wear that gown that you wore to the premiere of the play last February. I really liked that one. I smiled. I know that you did, but I think that I have something else. I've worn that one twice already. Brad bent and we shared one more, long kiss before he left. Afterwards I used the hall mirror to fix my face before returning to the living room. Dad went home Christmas evening without ever mentioning the kiss in the kitchen to anyone. I wondered if he had surrendered to the idea that I was going to remain like this for a while and that I would act like a woman at all times, or if he had forgotten as most everyone else seemed to have forgotten. Carol and I spent the rest of the week together having fun and enjoying the new car. We went shopping almost every day with Heather, Sherry, and Debbie. My friend Jenny from school joined us several times and fit right in with our crowd. I went out with Brad twice more before New Year's Eve. He was spending most of his time during the days running around renewing friendships with former football teammates who were home from school like he was. I also picked up a script from Mr. Tucker, who had paid the license fees for the play that we would put on, and I began to study the part. As I supposed, a lot of the onstage time would be spent emoting fear rather than spouting lines. Brad picked me up at 7 for his parents' New Year's Eve party. He wanted us to be there to greet guests as they arrived. His parents greeted me warmly, as they had always done, and we went into the living room to talk with his father, as his mother saw to final, last-minute arrangements. The number of kitchen help and serving people that I saw as we walked past the kitchen surprised me. I counted at least 9. I began to wonder how many people were coming to this party tonight. Brad's father said as we reached the living room, "That's a beautiful gown, Crystal." "Thank you, Mr. Reese. I had it made for the movie premiere that I attended in New York City. I'm happy that I had another occasion to wear it." "Oh, I thought that your movie premiered in Los Angeles." "That was the second one, where I had a much larger part. The first one was The Promise of Spring. I barely made the opening credits on that one. I missed that one. We'll have to get it on videotape when it comes out. We loved your performance in Open Spaces. My wife talked about it for days. I'm glad that you liked it. It was a lot of fun to make and the cast and crew were great. Any new pictures coming up?" "No, nothing in sight, so I agreed to do another play here in town with the community theater. It's called Wait Until Dark. I saw the movie. It had Audrey Hepburn in it, I think. That's the role that I'll be playing. The play only has a small cast." "When does it open?" "It'll play during all the weekends in February. I've already begun working on the script and the carpenters are building the sets." "Wonderful. I'll tell my wife to get tickets as soon as they come on sale. That should be in about 2 weeks. We talked until the first guests started to arrive around 9 o'clock. Once the first few arrived, it was like the floodgates were opened. At least 25 couples came. That was quite a difference from last year's half dozen, but like last year, I seemed to be the center of attention during the early evening. I think that almost every one of the men was either a lawyer or a politician, although I did meet 2 land developers too. I also learned that several of the wives were either lawyers or in politics. During the evening, I was surprised to be told by one man that his main reason for coming here was to meet me. He'd been told weeks ago that I would be here. That was long before I had even been invited, and I began to think about what Carol had said about being welcome at any party because of my fame. I also thought about something that I had heard Marilyn Monroe say during a recorded interview played on one of those classic movie channels about how she felt that she was often invited to parties as window dressing rather than a real guest. I guess that it was logical for Mr. and Mrs. Reese to assume that I would be here since I was going steady with their son, and he had to be here. At midnight we counted down the last few seconds and then celebrated. I think that every man in the room came over to me for a Happy New Year's kiss. The state governor made sure that he was first in line, followed by state senators and judges. We stayed for another hour before Brad took me home. He got the last kiss of the evening and the longest. Please subscribe for the next part and visit my Patreon page for early access. Link in the comment. Thanks.